Close your eyes for a second and imagine this. You wake up in a cold sweat on a Tuesday morning. Your silk sheets are soaked through. Your $20,000 custom mattress suddenly feels like a bed of thorns. And the only word in your mind, the one burning off your tongue before your eyes are even fully open, is a name. But it's not the name of the woman you're going to marry in 7 days. My name is Randy. I'm 38 years old. I built my first company at 22, sold it at 27, and have spent the last decade turning that first win into a 9-figure empire. I own 3 homes, 2 private planes, and more than I'll ever need in 10 lifetimes. By every single measure that the world uses to call a man successful, I had made it. And up until last Tuesday, I was also the happiest man alive. I had Sarah. Brilliant, warm, patient, kind Sarah. We'd been together for 4 years. She laughed at my terrible jokes. She sat with me in the hospital when my father had his first heart attack. She never once cared about my money. And believe me, when you're worth what I'm worth, you notice. We had a $2 million wedding planned. The venue, a private estate in the south of France. Guest list, 280 people. Flowers imported from 3 different countries. A custom designer gown that took 9 months to make. 7 days from now, I was going to look that woman in the eye and promise her forever. Instead, I called her on a Tuesday afternoon and I said, and I want you to really hear this because I need you to understand how far gone I was. I said, I don't love you, Sarah. I don't think I ever did. In fact, if I never see your face again, it will be too soon. The line went dead. The call lasted 43 seconds. And the worst part? In that exact moment, I meant every word. My family thought I had snapped from work stress. My lawyers thought I was being blackmailed. My executive assistant quietly booked me a session with a psychiatrist. But none of them, not one person in my life, understood what was actually happening to me. Because what was happening to me didn't come from stress or pressure or a breakdown. It started with a cup of tea. Before we go any further, if this story has your attention, do me a favor, hit that like button and subscribe. I share stories like this one because real life is stranger and more twisted than any fiction, and too many people have never heard them. Now let's get back to it.
Monica had been in the peripheral of my professional world for about 3 years. We'd met at a charity gala. She was in PR, well-connected, sharp, attractive. She made her interest known almost immediately. I declined, politely, the first time, and the second, and the third. I was with Sarah. I was committed. I was clear about that. But Monica was persistent in a way that never quite tripped the wire of harassment. She was too smart for that. She'd appear at the same events. She'd send congratulatory messages when my company hit milestones. She'd find reasons to be wherever I was, always just within the edges of what felt acceptable. I didn't think much of it. Honestly, I thought she'd eventually move on. I thought it was an obsession that would fade. I was wrong, because Monica was never after my heart. She wanted my empire, and she'd done her research on how to get it. 3 weeks before the wedding, Monica showed up at my office building. She claimed she was there for a meeting with my head of marketing, plausible enough that my assistant let her wait in the lobby. Then, on her way out, she coincidentally crossed paths with me near the elevators. She was holding 2 cups of tea, said she'd just come from the coffee cart downstairs, had ordered an extra by mistake, and asked if I wanted it. A specialized herbal blend, she said, something she swore by for stress. I was heading into a 4-hour board meeting. I was tired. I took the cup. Why wouldn't I? She was an acquaintance standing in my lobby offering me a warm drink on a cold Wednesday morning. I didn't think twice. Within 40 minutes of finishing that tea, something in me shifted. Not dramatically, not like a switch flipped, more like the color temperature of everything changed, like reality had subtly been retuned. The smell of Sarah's perfume, the one I'd loved for 4 years, started making me feel vaguely nauseous. When she touched my hand that evening, it felt cold, foreign, like being touched by someone I didn't know. But Monica? The thought of her sent something through my bloodstream that felt like adrenaline, like the pull of something I couldn't name but couldn't stop thinking about. I started texting her that night. Just to check in, I told myself. By the end of the week, I had wired her $50,000, then $100,000, then more. I couldn't explain it. I didn't try. I was too deep inside it to see it from the outside. My mother called me 3 days before the wedding, in tears. The florists had delivered the centerpieces. The caterers needed final confirmation on the seating arrangements. She was asking me about the rehearsal dinner, and I looked at her across the table, my mother, the woman who raised me, and I said, "Cancel it, all of it. I'm marrying Monica on Saturday. She's the only one who truly understands me." I watched her face crumble. I watched her hands shake. I watched tears run down the face of a woman who had never once asked me for a single thing in my adult life except to be loved in return. And I sat there, completely unmoved. Not cold on the surface while feeling guilt underneath, actually truly unmoved, like watching a film about someone else's mother cry. I was a passenger. There was someone in my body making my decisions, and I had no idea how to get back to the wheel.
The wedding day came, but it wasn't France. It wasn't the estate with the rose-covered archways and the 280 guests and the imported flowers. It was a courthouse, a $12 a day parking lot outside, a judge who looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. Monica stood across from me in a white dress, and she was grinning, not like a bride on our wedding day, like someone who had placed a very long bet and was finally watching the payout come through. She had won, or at least she thought she had. The judge cleared his throat, looked at me over his reading glasses, and said the words, "Do you take this, woman?" My nose started to bleed. Not a polite trickle, a flood. Blood hit the floor of that courthouse. Blood hit the papers on the judge's desk. Monica made a sound, halfway between disgust and panic. And then something cracked open. I can't describe it better than that. Something in the fog around my mind cracked open like a shell, and for the first time in 2 weeks, I could see clearly. Not gradually, not slowly, like someone had thrown open every curtain in a dark room all at once. I looked at Monica. I really looked at her. And I didn't see the woman I'd been obsessing over. I didn't feel the heat in my blood that had been driving me for 2 weeks. I saw a stranger in a white dress with my blood on the floor between us, and her purse had fallen open near her feet. Inside it, I could see a small drawstring leather pouch, dark, oiled leather, and sticking out from the top, a strand of hair. My hair. I have very distinctive hair. I know my own hair. Time slowed down in the way it only does when the most important realizations of your life hit you. The tea, the sudden irrational feelings, the compulsion to wire her money, the shrine of devotion I had built around a woman I barely knew, the fog, the detachment from everything I loved. She hadn't fallen in love with me. She hadn't charmed me. She hadn't even tricked me with clever manipulation. She had stolen my will, deliberately, precisely, with patience and planning. I looked her in the eye, and instead of the words the judge was waiting for, I said, "I know what you did." The courthouse went still. I walked out of that courthouse and I made 3 phone calls. The first to my head of security, the second to my lead attorney, the third to a private investigator my firm keeps on retainer for corporate fraud cases. I told all 3 of them the same thing: find everything. They found it within 48 hours. In Monica's basement apartment, investigators documented a shrine, photos of me surrounded with candles burned down to nubs, handwritten journals filled with my name, and receipts, actual financial receipts for services she had purchased from someone she had hired to perform binding rituals. She had paid, she had planned, she had executed. My attorneys found the fraud in the wire transfers. They found the stalking in 3 years of documented pattern behavior. They found the civil violations in what she had slipped into my drink and placed under my desk. Monica went from a courthouse wedding to a courthouse arraignment faster than I think she believed was possible. She's behind bars now. Justice, in the financial and legal sense, was thorough. That is what billions of dollars are good for. When the system needs to move fast, the right resources move it. But here's the part that keeps me up at night. Sarah is gone. I called her after it was over. I explained everything: the tea, the pouch, the shrine, the investigators' reports. I sent her the documentation. I sent her the police report. I had people who could corroborate every word. She listened to all of it. She was quiet for a long time, and then she said something I will never forget for as long as I live. "Randy, I believe you. I believe everything you're telling me, but I can't look at you without seeing the way your face went blank when you said you never loved me. I can't unfeel that moment, and I can't build a marriage on a foundation that has that moment in it. I'm sorry." The call lasted 6 minutes and 41 seconds. I know because I checked. I have all the money in the world. I have a team that can track and prosecute someone who tried to steal my autonomy. I have resources that most governments don't have. And I'm sitting in a 14,000 square foot house that is completely silent. Money can build you walls. It can hire you guards. It can fund lawyers sharp enough to find every hidden thread of a conspiracy and pull it until the whole thing unravels in a courtroom. But love is not a thing that can be protected by walls. It can be taken, not by force, but by shadows, by patience, by someone willing to reach into the most private architecture of who you are and rearrange it while you're not looking. And once that trust is broken, once the person who loved you has looked into your eyes and seen a stranger looking back, all the gold in the world cannot rebuild what was there before. Monica wanted my empire. She got a cell. I got the empire back and an empty house. I'll let you decide who really lost.